This meeting will be held by teleconference. The teleconference audio can be accessed at the following toll-free number, 1-866-899-4679, using the access code 456-208-973, and through an audio feed located at our YouTube channel. Any member of the public wishing to comment on an agenda item can send the comments to the following email address, board-questions@sisd.net. On March 16th, Governor Greg Abbott granted a request by Attorney General Ken Paxton to temporarily suspend a limited number of open meetings laws to the extent necessary to allow telephonic or video conference meetings in response to the coronavirus. In accordance with those suspended rules, we certify the following. Notice of this meeting has been posted online for at least 72 hours. Number 1, although members of the board are not gathered in a central physical location, we do have a quorum in attendance at this meeting by telephone call and internet access. Number 2, we are meeting by use of both telephone conference call, online access, and through use of an email link for questions. Number 3, if a member of the public submitted written comments in advance, the board president or a member of the administration will read the comments into record before or during the board's consideration of that item. If you would like to provide comment at a future meeting conducted by video conference or telephone call, please follow instructions on the meeting notice. Number 4, all other meeting procedures will adhere to board adopted procedures to the extent practicable. And number 5, an audio recording of this meeting is being made and will be available to the public at a later date. Number 6, we apologize in advance for any unforeseeable difficulties and ask for your patience as we navigate unprecedented conditions. Number 7, if you have any questions about these suspended laws, please call the Office of the Attorney General at 888-672-6787. And now I'll do a roll call to ensure that we have a quorum. Mr. Morales? Do we know if Mr. Morales is on?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Morales is on. He might be having some difficulty with his mic.
Okay, well, we'll come back to him. I do know that Mr. Guetta is not with us tonight. So, Mr. Gondeta?
Here.
Mr. Garcia?
Present.
Mr. Mena?
Present.
And Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
Okay, and so we do have a quorum. And at this time, if you'll all please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance, which is going to be led tonight by Mr. Richard Ortega, who is our Director for Special Education. Mr. Ortega?
Thank you, Ms. Nájera. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Ortega.
Thank you, ma'am. You're welcome.
Okay, we will move on with item number 3, Superintendent's comments. Dr. Espinosa?
Yes, President Nájera, members of the board, can you hear me, Ms. Nájera?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Oh, perfect. All right. President Nájera, members of the board, normally, again, at our board meetings, we honor outstanding students, staff who have earned, those special recognitions, those accolades. However, with this pandemic, it's a little bit different. But they still deserve that moment in the spotlight. So this evening, I'd like to recognize 2 awesome individuals, one for earning a prestigious award for her service in SISD, and another for his heroic actions to save a colleague's life. First, I would like to honor SISD volunteer, Miss Ofelia Murillo, who won the 2020 Heroes for Children Award from the Texas State Board of Education. The Heroes for Children Award is awarded to 15 recipients in Texas for their outstanding contributions of time and service to support public school students. You know, Ms. Murillo, she's been a volunteer in SISD for 7 years, mostly at Waco Elementary, but also district-wide, you know, for different events and different activities throughout our school district. She was named the Campus Volunteer of the Year at Waco, not only once, but 3 times in 17, 19, and 20. So that's just amazing. Ms. Murillo ha sido nombrada voluntaria del año de Waco, no solo una vez, sino que 3 veces. So wow. Also, she was named the Elementary Volunteer of the Year, not only for Waco, but for the entire school district. Okay, Ms. Murillo también fue nombrada voluntario del año para todas las escuelas elementarias en Socorro ISD este año. And I know that Ms. Murillo is listening tonight, so we can make her feel as loved as she makes our children and staff feel every time she volunteers. So, Ms. Murillo, usted es nuestro héroe. Nosotros la agradecemos por su gran corazón, excelente servicio público y amor genial por nuestros estudiantes y empleados. Felicidades, Ms. Murillo, por recibir el premio de héroes para niños del estado de Texas, que es bien merecido. De parte del equipo de Socorro, le doy las gracias por su dedicación y servicio a nuestro distrito. Disfrute este excelente reconocimiento porque es bien merecido. So we truly appreciate her big heart, her great public service, and genuine love for our students and staff. So congratulations again to Ms. Murillo for receiving the well-deserved 2020 Heroes for Children Award. And so again, on behalf of Team SISD, I thank her for her dedication and service in our district. So enjoy the spotlight, Ms. Murillo, because you have earned it. Muchas gracias, Ms. Murillo. Yo sé que está oyendo en la computadora, so muchas felicidades. Also, team, moving on to another hero, I'd like to recognize Luis Gaitan, a cafeteria manager at Ituarte and Hernando Middle. Mr. Gaitan is certainly a hero in our school district. He took swift and heroic actions to save a child nutrition service employee who works at Hernando Middle School. When the employee started choking during lunch, Mr. Gaitan, he jumped into action. He did the Heimlich maneuver and was able to dislodge the food the employee was choking on and saved his life. All of our cafeteria managers, they take extensive safety training. So Mr. Gaitan, he knew exactly what to do calmly and effectively as well. So it gives me great pride to honor Mr. Gaitan and his valiant efforts in saving his teammate. I think Mr. Gaitan he's also listening with us tonight. So thank you so much, Mr. Gaitan. You are a Team SISD hero. We're grateful and happy to know that we have people like you, Mr. Gaitan, in our school district that who never ever waver in helping the most heroic ways when needed. So congratulations, Mr. Gaitan. You've earned it. So again, to honor Ms. Murillo and Mr. Gaitan, we posted articles on our website. We also sharing those stories on our district social media accounts, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. So please share the story and post with your family and friends so that they can applaud our incredible members and volunteers. So para reconocer a Ms. Murillo y Mr. Gaitan, vamos a tener artículos de ellos en nuestra página web del distrito y nuestros medios sociales. Pedimos que todos comparten estos artículos con su familia y amigos para brindarles una luz fuerte a Ms. Murillo y a Mr. Gaitan. So, bien merecidos. Thank you so much, President Nájera. That concludes my comments. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Dr. Espinosa, and it's so great to be able to hear stories again of our amazing heroes that work within Team SISD. Thank you. Before we move on to item number 4, I believe we do have one letter to be read tonight, Ms. Macias.
Yes, ma'am. President Nájera, Dr. Espinosa, members of the board. We do have open forum response from Mr. Tommy Hill, and it reads, I would like to thank everybody involved that helped transportation be able to get their hours this week. Most of us in transportation are still recovering financially from this pandemic. I know the district did not have to give us Wednesday to Friday on call for 7 hours, but since they did, our bus drivers and bus monitors have a better chance of taking care of the financial responsibilities and obligations. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Macias. And we'll move on to item 4A, consider approval of Generation Texas Month Proclamation, October 2020. Ms. McCabe.
Yes, good evening, President Nájera, Dr. Espinosa, and members of the board. My name is Tammy McCabe, the Director of School Counseling. This evening, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Sophia Martinez, a third grader at James P. Butler Elementary. She will be reading the Generation Texas Month Proclamation. And I give you Sophia.
Hi, my name is Sophia. Whereas Texas Education Code, Chapter 29.911 requires each middle school, junior high school, and high school to provide students with information about higher education options. Whereas the mission of the Socorro Independent School District is to maximize our children's academic, artistic, athletic, and social skills. Whereas the mission of the Socorro Independent School Guidance and Counseling Program is to provide a comprehensive developmental guidance and counseling program that will maximize the academic, personal, social, and career competencies of all students that they may realize personal post-secondary goals. Whereas students who attend institutions of higher education attain a wide range of personal, financial, and other lifelong benefits. Whereas the demand for graduates of higher education globally has increased and will continue to grow. Whereas the counselors, faculty, and staff of Socorro Independent School District campuses realize the importance of educating students on higher education, including higher education options, admissions requirements, availability of financial aid, and financial aid requirements. Therefore, we do hereby proclaim October and November 2020 as Generation Texas Month.
Thank you, Sophia. And we ask the board to accept the proclamation as read.
Motion to approve, Ms. Nájera. Mr. Mena.
I'm sorry, was that Mr. Garcia as the second?
Yes, ma'am.
I have a motion by Mr. Mena and a second by Mr. Garcia. And I'll now call the vote. Mr. Morales? Hey, can we check with Mr. Morales and see what kind of trouble he's having?
Yes, ma'am. We are reaching out.
Thank you. Mr. Gandita?
Aye.
Mr. Garcia?
Aye.
Mr. Mena?
Aye.
And Ms. Rodriguez?
Aye.
And the motion carries. Thank you, Ms. McCabe and Sophia. Thank you so very much. That was a wonderful, wonderful job.
You're welcome.
And now we will move on to item 4B, consider approval of Red Ribbon Week Proclamation, October 23rd through 31st of 2020. And again, Ms. McCabe.
Yes, President Nájera. Sophia Martinez will also be reading the Red Ribbon Proclamation, and I'll let you know she has on her red shirt and her red bow.
Fantastic.
Hello. Whereas the Socorro Independent School District values the health and safety of all our students and our community, and whereas substance abuse is particularly damaging to one of our most valuable resources, our children, and whereas it is the goal of Red Ribbon Week and the Socorro Independent School District to involve families, schools, businesses, law enforcement agencies, and service organizations in all aspects of this campaign, and establish an atmosphere that supports awareness, education, and ongoing initiatives to prevent illegal drug use. And whereas Red Ribbon Week is celebrated in honor of Enrique Kiki Caminera, a federal drug enforcement agent who was killed while investigating a drug cartel. And whereas the Red Ribbon Week campaign theme promotes family and individual responsibilities for living healthy, drug-free lifestyles, and there are many activities planned during the Red Ribbon Week campaign on campuses throughout Socorro ISD. Now, therefore, may it be resolved that the Socorro Independent School District Board of Trustees do hereby proclaim October 23rd through October 31st, 2020 as Red Ribbon Week, and encourage students, parents, employees, and our community to participate in drug prevention education activities to demonstrate that our school district and community are committed.
And again, we ask the board to accept the proclamation as read.
Motion to approve.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Garcia and a second by Ms. Rodriguez. Is there any further discussion? And do we have Mr. Morales back on yet?
No, ma'am. We are troubleshooting with him at the moment.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Gondeta?
Aye.
Mr. Garcia?
Aye.
Mr. Mena?
Aye.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Aye.
And the motion carries. Ms. McCabe, thank you. And Sophia, another great job. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And we will move on with number 5, district reports. A, House Bill 3 Board Goals Update. Ms. McBain?
Hi, good evening, President Nájera, members of the board, and Dr. Espinosa. I am Kelly McBain, Director for Research and Evaluation. This presentation is on page 13 in your board book. In May, we presented the HB3 board goals for early childhood reading, math, and college, career, and military readiness. The state requires an update to the board at least once annually, and at that board meeting, it was requested that we would provide updates 3 times a year to not only report on the end of the year goals, but also to provide updates on beginning of year data and also middle of year data. On the next page, page 14, is a timeline of our presentation. So at this meeting, we'll present the beginning of year early childhood data, where students tested in September, and the end of year data for CCMR. In February, we'll be back to present the middle of year, and in June, we'll present the end of year early childhood data with any updates that we have relating to the CCMR. On the next page, on page 15, is the iStation beginning of year reading data report. This is a 2-year comparison. You'll see 2019 data is in blue and 2020 data is in orange. And you'll see our kindergarten students surpassed our 2019 data by 25 points, which was actually unexpected for this year. We do attribute this to a home testing environment, where this is the first time they've actually taken this test and may have needed more support to be able to navigate and answer the questions. For our first grade data, it's even with 2019 at 50%. And then in second and third grade, we actually saw the decline that we were expecting for this year because of the pandemic. So in second grade, we had data in 2019 that was at 66% reading ready. And in 2020, it went to 61%, and third grade it was at 67%, and in 2020 it was 63%. On the next page, page 16 is the iStation math data report, and we're seeing similar trends with kindergarten data at 90%, first grade data at 71, second grade data at 59, and third grade data at 57. We didn't have a 2-year comparison for this because this math assessment is a new assessment as of this year. So we'll be back in February to give you updates for middle of year, and it's going to be interesting to see how this data looks for this year going forward. The next piece of this presentation is on the CCMR. It's on page 17 in your board book. On this slide, I went ahead and included the definition of what CCMR is and how it's measured, and it's measured by achieving one or more of the following. So meeting the TSI criteria in math and reading, meeting the AP or IB test criteria, completing dual credit courses, receiving an associate's degree, receiving industry-based certifications, enrolling in or enlisting in the military, and enrollment in CTE courses. Those are all ways students can pick up CCMR credits. Now, it is important to also note that this is data based on the class of 2019. The state reports this data always a year behind. So this would have been data that would have been used in the 2020 accountability system if it was not suspended for this year. So this is the end of year report, and I use the state's template that they gave us to report this out on. So the first thing on this page is the overall CCMR goal, which reads, the percent of graduates that meet the criteria for the CCMR will increase from 60 to 67% by August 2024. In 2019, our data shows SISD at 60% of graduates meeting one or more of the CCMR criteria. And just to put that into perspective, 60% is the threshold the state would use as an A rating for this indicator. Our interim goal was 62%, and we exceeded that with 69% career and college and military ready with a 9-point gain. As part of the CCMR indicator, we chose 2 progress measures that the district is working on to help increase the overall CCMR outcome. And the first one is the percent of students that achieve the TSI criteria on the math TSI assessment will increase from 32 to 36% by 2024. So our 2019 data was at 32%. We set an interim goal of 33, and the final outcome for the class of 2019 was 35, which was a 3-point gain. The second progress measure was the percent of students that received an approved industry-based certification will increase from 9% to 13% by 2024. Our data in 2019 was 9%. We set an interim goal of 10%, and our actual data stayed the same at 9%. So we are confident that we'll achieve that 13% goal that we set for 2024. In addition to an overall CCMR goal, the state required goals for each of the following student groups: African American, Hispanic, white, special education, economically disadvantaged, and English learners. We followed the same trend with the overall goal, setting interim goals of 2 percentage points higher than the 2019 data. So you can see our 2020 outcome on the top row there, and the interim goal on the bottom row, with 5 of the student groups achieving a 2 to 7 point gain, with the white student group staying the same at 67%. On the last page is our high school campuses. This shows them to be on track to meeting their 2024 CCMR goal, which of course attributed to the success of the district meeting its interim CCMR goal. We'll continue to work on meeting the progress measures and giving students opportunities to be prepared for life after high school. So overall, students being college, career, and military ready is a big focus in our district, with having already achieved the A rating overall and also in the CCMR indicator in 2019. We're confident that the district will continue making strides in this area. Next year, we are going to be reporting on the class of 2020. It is a class whose opportunities to pick up CCMR points were somewhat diminished due to this pandemic. There's fewer testing opportunities and so forth, but we do already have systems in place, and we're confident that our 5-year goals will be met. Do you have any questions?
Are there any questions for Ms. McBain? Ms. McBain, thank you so much for this update. I know right now it's hard to provide us with these numbers due to the pandemic and all the other variables that go into this, but we really appreciate being able to see where we're starting the year so we can see what progress or areas of need that we have by the time we get to the end of the year. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
We'll move on to 5B, Safety and Security Committee update. Is the Safety Committee, Dr. Castro?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. President Nájera, school board members, Dr. Espinosa. This is Ismael Castro. I'm the emergency manager for the school district. So this evening, we're going to give you an update on our Safety and Security Committee. What we're going to do first is start up with what our amazing nurses have been doing in our school district as far as contact tracing. And we'll start off with that, and then I'll follow up with a Safety and Security Committee update. Ms. Madrid, are you on there to start presenting with regards to the nurses?
Yes, I will go ahead and introduce our nurses. These are the nurses that are part of our task force, our contact tracing task force that came up with the protocol. Mrs. Monica Gutierrez, Mrs. Sarah Olivas, and Mrs. Jessica Varela. Mrs. Jessica Varela and Mrs. Sarah Olivas is also part of our on-call group that have been working very diligent and hard on the part of the contact tracing group also. Ladies?
Hello, my name is Monica Gutierrez, and I'm going to introduce to you a day in the life of a school nurse during a pandemic. So what the nurses have been doing is we've been coming together, 10 of us, and we are the COVID-19 task force. We've been meeting daily to go over exclusion and quarantine, to implement these protocols for our district, for our students, and for our staff, as well as contact tracing. We've used evidence-based resources from different agencies, and we have been also educating staff and students as far as how to wear the face mask, how to take their temperatures, how to keep their hands clean, making sure that they wash them, to take these precautions as far as teaching them the protocols as well, the face mask, the social distancing, and trying not to be around each other longer than 15 minutes. So nurses have been doing this since the school year started, and we've been teaching staff so that way when students return, they can turn around and teach the students. And what all of this has done with the instruction that we've given them is to empower them so that way they have a sense of confidence as far as what they need to do to take care of not only themselves, but their students, and then turn around and go home and take care of their families. So that way this practice can help to reduce or stop the spread of COVID-19 as much as possible. We also have what the school nurses have differently this year is we have our wellness clinic, which is the everyday nurse clinic, and we have our isolation clinic. Ms. Jessica, you can go ahead and do the next screen.
Hi, we're going to be just on page 24, just going over the e-swipe process, is kind of how we start our contact tracing. We ask both students and employees to e-swipe prior to arriving campus. For employees, the employee health clinic, campus administrators, and human resources are kind of collaborating and monitoring employees. And then on the student side, the campus nurses are collaborating with campus administration, campus athletic coordinators, and athletic trainers to monitor the students. On page 25, it kind of this is an example of what our wellness check is. Our technology department did a fantastic job putting it together and making changes as needed. They also gave us the ability to create rosters. That way we can track students a little bit easier, and we can just kind of monitor their progress. And Ms. Sarah is going to go ahead and go over the eSwipe for students on page 26.
Okay, so on page 26, it is the eSwipe for students. And what we've been doing in the mornings is making sure that their eSwipe has been completed. We follow up on any yes answers that were answered on the eSwipe, and we make sure that the students are not on campus. You will contact the teacher or contact the coaches to make sure they're not on campus. And if they are on campus, for sports, they're sent home immediately. If they are at school, we pull them out of class and we send them to the isolation room. From there, we complete our COVID-19 checklist, which includes the contact tracing, and that helps us to determine who else has been exposed. We will do our nursing assessment, contact their parent, and then depending on that student interview, if there were other students that were exposed, then we go ahead and take those students out of class, and the same process is repeated. And so some of the indicators that we look for as far as break in the protocol is if they were wearing a mask, if they were practicing social distancing at 6 feet apart, and what was the length of time that they were with the other students, if it was longer than 15 minutes or more.
A little intro into what the nurses do daily in the wellness clinic is alongside, which I didn't mention prior, is that the nurses have created 25 safety videos that many nurses have along with their administration on their campus have provided for, and some made accountable for the staff, that they have to view them, and then it'll also be where the students will be held accountable to view these videos. And it ranges from how to e-swipe, to practice good hygiene, on how to keep social distancing, and there's a variety of them on there. On page, I believe it's 23, is where you can go ahead and see the link for those videos. And they're also available through the main SISD webpage. But so what the nurses do daily in the nurse clinic is we follow up on immunizations, we do educational health screeners, we do Medicaid billing, we verify health alerts. We are in charge of office logistics, from ordering supplies and keeping inventory. We're members of our safety team. We compose health newsletters and bulletin boards for our staff and students. We schedule immunization and flu clinics. We also spearhead the SISD health fair, and that's annually. We are members of the suicide protocol team, because when the counselors aren't available, the students are with the nurses, and we're the ones going through the protocol for them. We also give community referrals, and we're in charge of food allergies, where we keep staff informed. We train them on what to look for, how to use rescue medications, where to access them as well. We also have our daily health office visits that are not only for students, but also for staff and for the community. Anybody that comes onto our campus, we're available for them. We administer medications. We teach staff and students. We also are responsible for keeping track of and reporting communicable diseases. We also are a part of anything that's campus emergency, from calling 911, using our crisis team, and of course informing and keeping our administration up to date. We also are in charge of doing the mandatory annual state health screenings as well. In our isolation clinic, what that is, it's some of the campuses, they have it apart from the regular nurse's office. We will do we have full PPE coverage for the nurse. The students have appropriate PPE coverage, and we make sure that they wash their hands prior to going into that room. The nurses will do their assessments, which of course we take their vital signs, we check their oxygen saturation, and we auscultate for breath sounds to make sure that there is not a possible emergency on that at that time. And of course, we'll take action if there is. We also have a COVID-19 checklist, which includes contact tracing that we go through step by step, page by page, to make sure that we do not miss anything, and to ensure that we have all the information to pass to parents and to administration. We don't want to miss a step. Is why we created this. We document on our SNAP, which is the school nurse software. And on there are templates that have been created by our super users for SNAP, which include a template for COVID-19 positive disease, COVID-19 out of normal limits, which is a daily screen. We have the COVID-19 exposure and COVID-19 suspected. We are very, very thorough on anything COVID-19 for our district, for our staff, for our students. We contact parents and we inform them of quarantine policies and when the student can return to school. We notify our campus administration and teachers. We notify custodians so that they can go and sanitize the affected areas. And at the end of the day, we give a notification report, which is obtained from the SNAP templates, and we give those to our campus administration, our DSC administrator, our health manager, and the health department. And really fun for us nurses, and a really cool piece of technology that's coming to all of the SISD campuses. Thank you to SISD board and to our wonderful superintendent, all of our administration for approving this, Miss Rebecca Madrid for getting this to us, is the telehealth. And what that is we're going to be able to do rapid testing for influenza, for strep throat, and for COVID-19. This benefits our students by providing quick diagnosis and treatment to prevent the severity of illnesses, which will in turn contain the spread of it. Thank you so much. I'll pass this on over to Sarah.
Okay, so now what we're moving on to is our contact tracing. Okay, contact tracing is the process of identifying persons who may have come into contact with an infected person, and that allows us to isolate them or quarantine them to prevent the further spread of disease. Okay, so our task force came up with this contact tracing report, which is our checklist. And what we do is we go through a process. Okay, so first of all, the nurse will be notified of a positive or a presumptive positive case. And from there, we gather information. We speak to coaches, athletic trainers, the fine arts director, and we also utilize the e-swipe answers that students or parents answered. So that allows us to gather some information. Then we go ahead and contact the parent or guardian to gather some information. And so on this form, some of the important information that we do want to gather is, number one, are they remote learners or are they on campus? We want to know what campus they're on, how they arrived to school. Is it their own personal vehicle? Do they ride with somebody? Do they come on the bus? Do they walk? And if you can picture this, we're trying to get a picture to see how many other students could have been affected by this one positive case or presumed positive case. We want to know the last date the student was on campus, what their current location is, because if they are at school, we need to get them home as quickly as possible into quarantine. And then we gather information as far as their significant medical history to see if they did develop any COVID symptoms, if they would have a higher risk of them being more serious, okay? So then we go ahead and find out, okay, did they swipe a wellness concern, or did the parent report that the student is COVID-19 positive? Were they exposed to a COVID-19 positive or symptomatic person? Or did they develop these symptoms while they were at school? So first thing is, if the student is at school, we are going to isolate them immediately, send them to the isolation room and have their parents pick them up, okay? We want to know if they've been tested for COVID-19. And we want to know when they got the test, what the results were, and if they were having any symptoms, because this also helps our health department to get research on COVID-19, as well as us, so we know, what we're looking at. We look at their current symptoms. Are they asymptomatic, or do they have more serious symptoms, or just the regular symptoms that are COVID-like? And so from there, we go ahead and move on. We do our contact tracing, in which we ask if they have any household members that are SISD students or employees. That way we can notify the campuses of those students. So if there's a positive case, we can go ahead and notify the nurse or the admin of students that might be in maybe an elementary school or at the high school. That way we can start to contain them right away and we prevent the further spread. We want to know their symptoms, when they started, and then here's the other important part is if they were wearing their mask, what extracurricular activities do they participate in, such as sports or any fine arts, because from there we will go ahead and contact the coach or the fine arts director to get a roster, because any students that were exposed, we'll go ahead and make sure they're at home, contact those parents, make sure that they do stay in isolated or quarantined, and then we determine how long they're going to be in quarantine. And in the next slide, in the next page, we'll go ahead and discuss how we determine for the amount of time that they will be excluded or in quarantine. Our last process is notifying we want to notify the administrator. We want to notify the directors of the health services and our district directors. And we go ahead and let them know. And then that way we can go ahead and follow. And you can imagine like how widespread it can be if we weren't isolating these kids right away. So thank you. Next is Jessica.
Thank you, Sarah. So on page 31, we have our exclusion and quarantine flow chart. And so this we adapted from the Oregon School Nurses Association, and we use it to help guide the decision-making process. So on track 1, which is the orange section, we just look at students who have COVID symptoms and no close contact exposure. Then in track 2, the yellow section, we look at students that have COVID symptoms and they have a close contact exposure to a COVID case. In track 3, the blue section, we look at students who have no symptoms, but they've had close contact to a COVID case. And lastly is track 4, which is this red section. This is the COVID positive students or students that are presumed to be positive. And then on page 32, we have our COVID times table. It contains the same information as the flow chart. It just looks a little more simplified. So for each scenario, we'll look at three things. We'll look at symptoms. We'll look at whether they have a close contact exposure to a COVID case and or if they have a COVID positive test. So when first evaluating a case, you just have to consider whether they have symptoms or whether they do not have symptoms. Then you'll determine if they have a close contact exposure to a COVID case, and then if they have actually tested positive for COVID. And then we'll move down to page 33. And this is actually what we send home or what we email if they're not on campus to the students that we do quarantine. So this is just a self-quarantine guide. It's like a 3-pager, has a lot of information, has the signs and symptoms, helpful resources, phone numbers. We also include a health log. That way they can kind of keep track and monitor their symptoms for the 14 days. And then on the last page is just kind of a flow chart just to kind of guide them on when to see a healthcare provider. And then we'll go ahead and move on to the process evaluation.
Okay, and so for the process evaluation, after everything, all the forms we came up with, our district has actually provided nurses on call, that they work on call during the weekend for contact tracing. During this intercession, we have anywhere from 2 to 3 nurses per day that also work on call. We will be getting a nurse assistant for each campus through an agency. And we are also collaborating with our athletic trainers and our fine art directors so that we can make sure that we all work together and make SISD the safest that we can. Thank you. On the next slide, or the next page, I'm sorry, page 35, this was our first 4 weeks of our contact tracing. We created this graph, and it's just to give you an idea of I guess, the overall picture of how contact tracing can help. Okay, so during week 1, we had 4 positive cases within our district. 2 of them were remote and 2 of them were on campus. Week 2, we had 8 positive cases. 4 of them were remote, 4 on campus. 3rd week, 10, and we had 8 remote, 2 on campus. So this is just kind of a little bit of an indicator of how, if we were not doing our contact tracing, how the on-campus cases could have skyrocketed. I mean, it could have doubled or tripled in number. And so by us being able to isolate these cases and get these kids into quarantine, it helps our schools, our district, to do our part in helping with this COVID-19 pandemic. And that's it for now. I'm not sure if you want us to take questions or...
Yes, ma'am. This is Ismael Castro. Are there any questions for our nurses?
Dr. Castro, I do have one question. I was very excited to hear about the telehealth program. Do we know when that will be available?
Ms. Madrid, if you can answer that question.
Here we go. I was having trouble with my mic. As of this week, they're going to start delivering the supplies. And starting next week, they'll be going out to the campuses to all the nurses to deliver the supplies. So they're waiting on us to see when our kids are going to start to transition back.
That's fantastic. Love to hear it. Ms. Madrid and all of our nurses, especially our nurses in our task force, I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank you for all of the phenomenal work you're doing. This pandemic has caused y'all to go above and beyond what your normal workload is, and we're just so appreciative of everything that you're doing to keep our students and our staff safe. Thank you so very much. Are there any other questions?
President Ahad, I do have some questions.
Yes, sir, Mr. Garcia, go ahead.
Dr. Castro, is El Paso County assisting us at all with the contact tracing?
Right now, at this point, our nurses are the ones that are doing the contact tracing, sir.
That's just just for the record, I think I'm very disappointed with El Paso County, because I think they should step it up and help the communities. My next question is for, I guess, Ms. Madrid. How quickly would we get the results of a COVID test using the telehealth that you're talking about?
They would be using the Sophia machine. So it's a rapid, so it'll be like a 15 minutes.
I think that's amazing and that's beautiful, especially because I know personally there are federal, state, entities, institutions that are being plagued with personnel issues because of this, because of the COVID. You have employees being exposed to a positive case, and then before you know it, you don't have personnel. So great thinking on that. I just want to applaud the nurses. Amazing work. Do you all feel that you have enough PPE, and do you all have enough personnel to get the job done?
We have enough PPE thanks to our purchasing department. They've gone above and beyond to get that all that for us. Again, we're looking also, thank you to our finance department. We're working with the agency out there to get us some help, to get additional help for our nurses out there.
Thank you. No more questions.
Thank you.
President Nájera, this is Ms. Rodriguez. I've got a question.
Yes, Ms. Rodriguez. Okay.
Ms. Madrid, and again, thank you to all of our nurses for everything, all the work that you all have been putting into this plan and just being ready to serve and move forward. Thank you all so much. As Mr. Garcia said, and as President Nájera said, you know, the work you all are doing is just amazing. Thank you so much. In looking at, you know, just in the information I've been hearing, I agree, you know, with Mr. Garcia again, and you know, it seems like we're helping the county, but the county isn't helping us with contact tracing and all that. When you stated about the rapid test, the COVID-19 rapid test, how accurate? I've heard different things on the rapid test. How accurate is that test? And I know it's a quick test. We get the results almost immediately. But what is the percentage of accuracy? Is there obviously for any test there's the question of the, you know, accuracy and the false negative, but can you tell us a little bit about how accurate we believe that test to be?
The research out there is showing that it's about 98% accurate. On the research out there, is showing 98% accurate on the Sophia's tubes, which is the same one that our employee health is using.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure. Again, I've heard different things on the rapid test.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've heard the pick your brain one is better than the rapid test, but that's all I needed to ask. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions?
Yes, President Nájera.
Yes, sir, Dr. Espinosa.
Yes, I just want to echo what the trustee said, Ms. Madrid, you know, Ms. Maldonado, Ms. Olivas, Ms. Gutierrez, and Ms. Varela, who you heard from. All of our nurses, all of them in SISD, you know, you heard from them that they're on call, all this tracing that they have to do, and believe me, we could use all the help that we have. I've seen them present, train our employees. They're just an awesome, awesome, awesome group of individuals. So to all the team who presented and to all our amazing nurses out there, I thank y'all so much during this tough time. Thank you for going above and beyond. Thank you, President Nájera.
Ms. Nájera?
Yes, sir, Mr. Gondeta.
Likewise with the superintendent, I just want to thank all our nurses for all the hard work they put in. I know it's been tough, and I know they've been putting in a lot of hours, and I just want to say thank you. And I know it takes you away from your family, but thank you for all your hard work, and we really do appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you all for your support.
If there's no further questions, Dr. Castro will go ahead and move on with the Safety and Security Committee.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So on your board book on page 39, you'll have information with regard to the safety audit cycle. It's every 3 years. It happens once every 3 years. And basically a safety audit cycle is a self-assessment of our facilities, basically taking a look at our interior, exterior, our climate, our data, and documents with regard to our facilities. It was extended this year to finish up the audits until October 31st. And then we have to report out by November 15th. You go to page 40 there. Again, it gives you information with regard to the audit reporting system, and it has to be in by November 15th. We have to share what we're doing right now. We have to share the information with our board trustees. The only difference, or what they added for this year, is that the audit has to actually be signed by our school board and our superintendent. Okay. And then moving forward, here's some pictures on page 41 of our team. It was a whole team process. And it took we set up teams through theater patterns to do our audits. They were trained. They went on and did the audits. And here you see some pictures on page 41. That's Contreras Pre-K Elementary. On page 42, you'll see some from Hernando. This is prior to COVID, actually. This was back in January of 2019. Okay. You'll see some pictures here on page 43 at Butler and Puentes when they conducted the audit. You can see there are one of our finance directors. He's leading the audit. So we have a different mix of people that were trained. It gives, actually, when you do the audits, that's what they ask, is that you have different mix of people. That way it gives a different eye whenever they go into a facility to be able to conduct the audit. Okay. And here's some pictures here from Montwood High School when the audit was conducted on page 44. And then on page 45, we did have the opportunity to use our new Navigate system to do our assessments for our non-instructional facilities, and it worked real well because you can actually upload pictures and do different things on there with our safety and security audits. So we're able to do that and use our new system that we have. All the audits on page 46, all the audits were completed for our instructional and non-instructional facilities. And then again, on page 47, it has information with regard to the district audit report. Remember, our district audit report is once every year, and it's basically an ongoing self-assessment of what we have with our safety with our school district. And our safety committee is the one that leads all that. So our teams came off our safety security committee. We set up our teams and we did the audits throughout the school district.
100%. Turn it to what?
On page 48, you'll see again the self-assessment, ongoing self-assessment. And we're going to submit a district audit report to the safety center, which is basically 6 sections. You can see them here. And basically the only new section that was added was a COVID-19 information that was added back in April. So we answered some questions with regard to COVID-19, what we've done in our school district. Okay, on page 50, you'll see for the first time ever, the Texas School Safety Center has a compliance center, and they asked for our district emergency operations plan. So we submitted that back in October the 6th. And with that, they're going to give us feedback on our district DOP, and that was submitted back in October 6th of this month. And here's just a synopsis of the table of contents. Has a basic plan in there. It has page 52 has a different annexes from communicable diseases, continuity of operations, are different annexes there, and it goes all the way, as you can see, through our table of contents. So that's basically the update with regard to our safety and security committee, and also our audit information as we present to you. And that's all we have for our safety and security update. Are there any questions?
Dr. Castro, I did have a question. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but did you say that the audit report has to be approved by the board and the superintendent, or just signed?
Actually signed, because on the audit report, it's basically accommodations and recommendations. And I know I'm scheduled to present in closed session, and I'll bring the results in there, because that has to be presented in closed session with regard to the results. So that's the only piece that they added, is that the school board needs to sign off on the report.
It doesn't have to be approved, correct?
No, it just has to be signed off. It has to be presented to the school board.
Okay, perfect. We look forward to hearing that. Are there any other questions for Dr. Castro? Okay, then thank you so much, Dr. Castro. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
And we will move on with item number 6, consent agenda. Are there any items to be pulled?
Motion to approve.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mena, yes?
I wanted to pull something from new business. Can I do that?
No, sir. This is only for consent. Each new business item will be presented and talked about.
Okay, that'll work.
Okay. And so I have a motion by Ms. Rodriguez. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Rodriguez and a second by Mr. Gondeta. Is there any further discussion? Then I'll call for a vote. Mr. Morales?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, sure can. Good to hear you, David.
You can hear me? Oh, man. We've been doing everything under the sun to try to get this to work.
Well, we're glad it's working. And I'm calling for a vote for consent agenda.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Gondeta?
Aye.
Mr. Garcia?
Aye.
Mr. Mena?
Aye.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Aye.
And the motion carries. We will move on to item 7A for new business. A, consider approval of fire marshal fees for the new combo school in the East Lake area. Mr. Eiington.
Good evening, President Dr. Espinosa, members of the board. We would, our presentations begin on page 189, and this one has to do with fees that the fire marshal or emergency service district number 1 will be imposing on the new combo out for bid and get ready to start construction. We received a proposal, and the reason why I put it on the agenda, we received a proposal for their fee in the amount of $116,665. However, back, some of the board members, new board members, were not aware of it, but back in April of 2017, we had a lawsuit with ESD number 1 and had a settlement on April the 24th, which basically put those fees at 60% reduction. So the $116,665 becomes $46,666 based on that agreement. And we have emailed the fire marshal that response, and Mr. Blanco is on the line and he can address any issue. But with that being said, administration recommends approval of the fire marshal fees at $46,660.
Are there any questions for Mr. Inkton? Well, Mr. Inkton, I myself, I was concerned about the amount whenever I didn't see it on there, and 46,000 is a heck of a lot better than 116.
Well, and Ms. President Honor, that's why I did not put it on the agenda, the amount, because Mr. Blanc and I were discussing this back and forth through emails and stuff. And my apologies, I probably should have put out a board communique explaining it. All that settlement allowed us to reduce that.
Yes, sir. Maybe if next time we can, yes, because I was, concerned with no price on there, and I knew we had conflicts about the fire marshal fees in the past, and so, but no, this is much, much better. And so, do I have a motion, or are there any other questions?
President Nájera, if we can just for the record, what was the final amount?
$46,666.
Thank you. Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Rodriguez and a second by Mr. Gondeta. Is there any further discussion? I'll call for a vote. Mr. Morales?
Aye.
Mr. Gondeta?
Aye.
Mr. Garcia?
Aye.
Mr. Mena?
Aye.
And Ms. Rodriguez?
Aye.
And the motion carries. And yeah, don't go anywhere, Mr. Inkton.
I'm up for the next 5 or 6 of them.
Item 7B, consider approval of guaranteed maximum price for package 2 of the new combo school Eastlake area.
This is the project that we just were talking about the fire marshal fees. If you recall on my report, the agenda item is on page 190. Last month, through package 1, earthwork, building concrete, and structural steel package on the new combo school for Eastlake. That project has since been put out for bid. We had to postpone the bid because of the closure of the DSC. However, we have received the bids, and those bids look good, and they're coming in under the proposed GMP at that time. This GMP is for the remaining portion of the project. It will complete the whole project, and approval tonight of the amount will allow purchasing and administration to advertise this project, and we can start receiving bids on it. Administration recommends approval of the guarantee maximum price for the remaining project of in the amount of $55,979,132 for package 2 of the new combo school East Lake area.
President Nájera, it's Mr. Mena. Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Mena and a second by Mr. Morales. Is there any further discussion? And I'll call for a vote. Mr. Morales?
Aye.
Mr. Gondeta?
Aye.
Mr. Garcia?
Aye.
Mr. Mena?
Aye.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Aye.
And the motion carries. 7C, consider approval of Terracon Consultants, Inc. for construction material testing for the new combo school East Lake area. Mr. Ironton.
Yes, this item continues on page 194. We have brought to you proposals for construction material and testing. Once we get a approved GMP and an approved construction, we are required to have third-party inspection project. And Terracon has been working on the project as far as putting together the geotechnical specifications. We generally continue with that same firm if they propose a reasonable fee. Terracon has estimated the cost of the service as $173,979. Both the architect and Baines has reviewed this, and both agree that this work is in the scope and for the estimated cost. Administration recommends approval of Terracon estimate cost of construction material testing in an amount of $173,197.
Is that 797, Mr. Ironton?
797, yes.
Thank you.
President Nájera, Mr. Mena. Motion to approve.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Mena and a second by Mr. Garcia. Is there any further discussion? Call for the vote. Mr. Morales?
Aye.
Mr. Gondeta?
Aye.
Mr. Garcia?
Aye.
Mr. Mena?
Aye.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Aye.
And the motion carries. Thank you. And item 7D, consider approval of amendment to lease with Freight Exchange of North America, LLC, 7th Amendment. Mr. Ironton.
Yes, for the new board members, if they're not aware of it, we have been leasing a portion of the property next to the police services to Freight Exchange. Over the past, I guess, 6+ years, because this would be the 7th Amendment they are requesting. Usually we have put it in for a year. We've gone to 2 years. I think this past year, they are requesting an approval for 3+ years. Mr. Blanco and I have looked at this and reviewed it. We made some modifications to their proposal because they were requesting, in the past, we have gone up $500 a month in rent each time that we renew this. they were basically holding that at that. So we have determined that the amendment would increase the rent from February 28th, 2021 through August 31st, 2023 shall be $11,500 a month, and the rent period from September 1st, 2023 through August 31st, 2024 would be $12,000 per month. Doing some quick calculations, if the board approves this, it will bring in over $533,000 in revenue for the district. Administration recommends approval of the 7th Amendment.
Motion to approve.
I have questions, please. Can I have a question on that?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, I didn't hear the purpose of that lease. I know we were new and this took place prior to the new board members coming aboard. Can you, Mr. Arrington, can you clarify that?
Yes, this lease, we were approached by Freight Exchange some years ago, and I'm not sure of the exact year. Mr. Blanco might know that, but we've been renting this property for the last, I guess 6 or 7 years to the Freight Exchange. And this is surplus property that was behind the police services, and they maintain everything. They pay for everything. We've had to go in there and ask them to repair some fencing, and they have responded to everything. So it's basically rental. They approached us for rental property, or if we had any rental property that we could rent to them, and that's basically how it started, Mr. Morales.
So we're the leaser, and we're the ones providing the lease to them. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I misunderstood. Okay. And you're saying
we received the rent from them? Yes.
And we receive the revenue that we obtain is close to 500,000. Is that correct? Is that what you said?
If you approve this new 7th Amendment, yes, sir. If my calculations are correct.
I don't have any other questions, and I'll second the motion after Mr. Garcia.
Thank you. I have a motion by Mr. Garcia and a second by Mr. Morales. Is there any further discussion? Okay, Mr. Morales, your vote?
Aye.
Mr. Gondeta?
Aye.
Mr. Garcia?
Aye.
Mr. Mena?
Aye.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Aye.
And the motion carries. One more, Mr. Arrington.
Well, maybe not.
Consider approval of Hewitt Zollers for the transportation bus canopy structure.
Okay, on page 206 of your agenda book, we've got this is one of our last or second to the last remaining project of the 2017 bond program. This is to provide a canopy structure, and I think in the back of your booklet in the back of the proposal kind of shows a picture of what we are planning to do on page 214. Hewlett Dollar was on the list of miscellaneous professional services, so we selected them because they were not only architects, but they are structural engineers on that list. And I feel that this project is more like a canopy structure, which is more structural than architecturally, and request a proposal for them to do this work. Budget is $500,000 inclusive of the fees, and Hewlett Zoller has come back with a fee of of $65,465 to do this project. And with the approval of the board tonight, we can start with the transportation department and finalizing this project and put it out for proposal. Administration recommends the approval of Zoller proposed fee of $65,465 for the transportation project.
Motion to approve is Mr. Mena.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Mena and a second by Mr. Garcia. Is there any further discussion?
Yes, I'd like to commend Mr. Mena for being the advocate and pushing to have this canopy done. I'm sure through the proper channels, and he pushed to help to get it done. So I commend you, Mr. Mena. Good job. Thank you.
No, guys, it was a team effort. It was all of us.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Okay, I'll call for the vote. Mr. Morales?
Aye.
Mr. Gondeta? Was that a yes, Mr. Gondeta?
Yeah, that's a
Mr. Garcia?
Yes.
Mr. Mena?
Aye.
And Ms. Rodriguez?
Aye.
And the motion carries. Thank you. Item 7F, consider approval of purchasing cooperative choice partners. Mr. Reza.
Yes, good evening, President Nakeda, Dr. Espinosa, members of the board, Tony Dessa, Chief Financial Officer. The administration is recommending approval to utilize the purchasing cooperative for the acquisition of cafeteria furniture and graphics for Montwood High School from EduSource Corporation, utilizing the purchasing cooperative choice partners. And this would be in the amount of $292,460.85. We have also Mr. Tom Ianton and Mr. Sam Garcia on board if there's any questions on the particulars.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Mena and a second by Mr. Garcia. Is there any further discussion? And now I'll call for the vote. Mr. Morales?
Aye.
Mr. Gondeta?
Aye.
Mr. Garcia?
Aye.
Mr. Mena?
Aye.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Aye.
And the motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reza. And we'll go on to item 7G. Consider approval of district's intention to request waiver to extend the submission due date for the fiscal year 2020 annual financial report. Mr. Reza?
Yes, President Nakeda, Dr. Espinosa, members of the board. The administration requests consideration and approval to submit a waiver requesting an extension of the submission due date for the 2020 annual financial audit report. So school districts with a fiscal year end of June 30th must submit their financial audit report by November the 27th, 2020. This summer, the Texas Education Agency informed these school districts that they were allowed an extension of the submission due date from November the 27th, 2020 until January the 28th, 2021. With the operational impact of COVID on district operations, the administration feels strongly that the additional 2 months would allow the staff time to appropriately account for and record any additional transactions that are required as a result of this pandemic on the district's finances. And therefore, we're asking the board's approval to submit this waiver request. We don't think it's going to we'll need the 2 months, but we think it would be helpful to the district.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve by Mr. Garcia and a second by Mr. Morales. Is there any further discussion? Okay, I'll call for the vote. Mr. Morales?
Aye.
Mr. Gondeta?
Aye.
Mr. Garcia,
Aye.
Mr. Mena,
Aye.
Ms. Rodriguez,
Aye.
and the motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Reza.
Thank you, ma'am.
Item 7H, consider approval of TASB Update 114, 115, and local policy. Ms. Macias.
President Nájera, Dr. Espinosa, members of the board, administration recommends consideration and approval of the revisions to the policies as listed. TASB Update 114, Policy DFFA, Policy GBAA, TASB Update 115, Policy BF, FD, FFH, FNG, and GF, Local Policy DEA, and if you could go to page 225 of your board book, the following local district update has been made, and it reads, all construction and or solicitations greater than $1 million must be presented for board approval under new business. At this time, administration recommends approval.
Hey, Ms. Macias and board members, discussion of the policy CH local came up during our policy meeting. And Mr. Reza and Mr. Garcia asked for board input because questions have been raised about what should be put under consent and what should be put under new business. So the committee asked Mr. Reza to come up with language of what, and this is what they included, was all construction and or solicitations greater than 1 million must be presented for board approval under new business. Now, there was a discussion during the policy committee that even if an item is under consent, of course, a board member can pull an item that they want to discuss. And it was said that if we put everything over $1 million under new business, then we're going to really bog down our board agenda. I also had a thought after our policy committee that maybe we could include language that says any new construction or solicitations over $1 million would be put on new business. As we stated in the policy committee, this wasn't a decision to be made by the policy committee. It needs to be made by the board. And so we needed to get input from the board of how this, I mean, should we leave that out and continue as we have been? I'd like to hear feedback. Your thoughts?
So Ms. Nájera, Mr. Mena, right
Yes, sir,
now,
Mr. Mena.
how is it worded right now? And
Right
what
now,
will be changing?
Actually, this is just an addition. It says at the top of that page, it says single budgeted purchases of goods or services that cost $100,000 or more, regardless of whether the goods or services are competitively purchased, shall require board approval before a transaction may take place. The only difference that we're trying to decide here is if items continue to be put on consent, or if certain items of whether they're new or they're a certain numerical amount, if they should be put under new business versus consent.
And you feel that if we don't do that, we're going to bog down our agenda?
I feel, Mr. Mena, my thought on this, okay, we buy toilet paper every year. And so if it's a reoccurring contract, I don't feel the need to see it on new business for it to be under consent. But if it's a new contract, say over $1 million, then yes, we need to have that explained to us under new business. That's my opinion on it.
So then they can buy anything up to $1 million without board approval under new business then? Is that what you're telling us?
No, sir. No, sir. Now, it's
Mrs. Nájera?
Mr. Mena, it's the same thing. Hold on just a second, Mr. Ganda. You know, even if it's under consent, the board's going to approve it. So all of this is still coming to us. It's just whether it's under consent or if it's under new business.
Okay, I got you. Thank you.
Mr. Ganda?
No, I think what Mr. Mena was just that Mr. Mena was asking. You know, anything that, even if it's on consent agenda, we can still pull it out and put it onto the regular agenda if there's some concerns.
Right, yeah. I figured that out. Thanks.
So is it the board's opinion that we keep it as it is now?
Ms. Mayra?
Yes, sir.
My opinion again is it works the same way. I mean, if there's any questions that need to be asked by any of the board members, which it's always been that anything on consent agenda that they have concerns on, we pull it out, you know, and then let them voice their concerns, and then we vote on it on regular agenda.
Exactly. Are there any other thoughts on this policy?
Mrs. Nájera, this is Ms. Rodriguez.
Yes, ma'am.
So if the board so chooses, then that language, all construction and/or solicitations greater than $1 million must be presented for board approval under new business. It was my understanding that all construction needs to be presented on new business, or is that no longer? I'm a little confused about that.
From what I understand, all construction goes on new business. None of it goes under consent, and that will remain practice.
Mrs. Nájera, that's correct. Our intent for the administration is to ensure that any new construction or any construction in general goes to the board under new business for this consideration.
So, Mr. Reza, if I understand correctly, then that language on page 225 under CH local in the highlighted part, it's all construction must be presented for board approval under new business. And
yes,
we're proposing excluding the solicitations greater than $1 million. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes, ma'am. I believe that was the intent of Mrs. Nájera's suggestion, recommendation.
Okay. I still, just my opinion, I like the idea of all construction and/or new solicitations greater than $1 million. I actually think if we're gonna move that way, then it needs to be in two separate sentences, because it could almost read as construction or new solicitations over $1 million. In other words, the $1 million would also apply to the construction.
I see what you mean, Ms. Rodriguez.
I have a question.
Yes, sir, Mr. Morales.
Is there any reason why we have to change it if it's been in policy for that number of years, or why are we looking at? Is it going to make a big difference? It looks to me like it's more of an issue by changing it than what it's worth, in my opinion.
I agree with you, Mr. Morales. There was just concerns brought up. A mistake was made. I believe 1 or 2 board meetings ago, where I believe it was a technology contract that should have been under new business was inadvertently put under consent. And so it was questioned, and we just wanted to see if we needed clarification on that.
Leave it as is.
Okay, so we will remove that highlighted area. It's on page 225, and it's policy CH, page 2 of 3, and the highlighted part that's being requested to be added is all construction or solicitations greater than 1 million must be presented for board approval under new business. We would just strike that whole thing.
President Nájera, this is
Yes,
Ms.
Ms.
Rodriguez. Again, if we're if this board is in the practice of all construction goes on new business, then who's to say if it's not at least written in the policy, that's going to go in consent? If that's our practice, why aren't we adding the language, is my question.
You do have a point, Ms. Rodriguez. I mean, it's always been our practice that all construction contracts come to the board. If the board feels that that needs to be put into policy so that we make sure that that continues, then we can do that.
So, Ms. Nájera, may I suggest that we put language that states all construction solicitations must be presented to the board for approval under new business?
Yes, sir, Mr. Reza, that sounds fine. Is everyone in agreement with that?
Perfect.
Yes.
We will make that amendment. We'll make that amendment and bring it back next month, just for formal approval by the board, or can we just go with the board approved, just making that change, and then knowing that we'll make.
Since it's just that one sentence, revising that one sentence, we can go ahead and approve it tonight. And so,
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Macias. And so at this time, board, we are approving, are there any questions about any of the other policies that have been brought in this item? Okay, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve changes to policy as discussed to include CH local.
I have a question. Sorry.
Mr. Garcia, you had a question?
Ms. Macias, can you discuss a little bit policy DFF8 local? It talks about, you know, RIFs and, you know, furloughs and things like that.
Yes, sir. And I'm pulling my policies. Mr. Reza, for DFFA local, that is a policy that your team presented last Monday. Mr. Garcia is asking for an update. I'll be happy to, but I don't want to butcher it. Mr. Reza?
Yes, Mrs. Macias. I don't believe it was presented to me, but so with respect to furloughs, so what it allows is the district the possibility of reduction in force should the district consider a financial exigency. And that's possible whenever there is a significant reduction in funding from the state or local funds due to cutbacks and so forth.
Mr. Garcia, this was part of an update from TASB, and 99% of the changes are all cosmetic changes to this policy. The only addition was, I'm sorry, that's on a different policy. All of the changes were just grammatical changes. There was nothing to change the content of the policy.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you so much.
Hey.
Thank you, Ms. Nájera. Mr. Reza?
Thank you, Ms. Macias. I do have first for approval a motion by Ms. Rodriguez. I need a second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Morales. Is there any further discussion? Okay, I'll call for a vote. Mr. Morales.
Aye.
Mr. Gondeta. Mr. Gondeta.
Aye.
Mr. Garcia.
Aye.
Mr. Mena.
Aye.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Aye.
And the motion carries. Thank you. Item 7I, consider approval of TEA transition waiver request for the 2020-2021 school year. Ms. Macias?
Yes, President Nájera, Dr. Espinosa, members of the board. On October 9, 2020 was the end of the initial 4-week transition period approved during a special board meeting on July 29th. On Friday, October 9th, a 9-week transition waiver request from October 19th until December 18th of 2020 was submitted to TEA for approval. Our required information was submitted along with an evidence-based transition plan, which was developed in coordination with Dr. Hector Esperanza, local health authority, and area school districts. This transition plan correlates the city-county of El Paso COVID-19 data to safely transition survey-identified groups in phases. It is vital that we plan with the end in mind and use evidence-based measures such as city-county of El Paso COVID-19 data to guide our safe transitions through the 2020-21 school year. Attached to your board book from pages 267 to pages 274 is our response to TA's waiver criteria. In addition to the data requested, a COVID-19 school readiness scorecard was provided. It is found on page 270 of your board book. On page 270, the COVID-19 school readiness scorecard is an assessment of specific COVID-19 pandemic indicators within the El Paso County that have a direct impact on the day-to-day operations of Region 19 school districts. It is defined by 4 performance measures over 2 categories, each being assessed with a score between 1 and 4, 4 being the best. The overall score or stage is obtained by rounding the average of the performance measures. If you go to epstrong.org/schools.php, they actually activated the COVID-19 school readiness scorecard as of today. The performance measures that are identified on page 261 are as follows. Consecutive day of decline in new cases, 7-day average. Number 2, positivity rate, 7-day average. Number 3, new cases per 100,000 population, the 7-day average. And number 4, percent COVID-19 related hospitalizations, the 7-day average. So if you look on page 271, you see that there are 4 stages. The parameters listed in stage 1 indicate high community spread of disease and thus warrant further stricter preventative interventions. And as you go to stage 4, that means that there's a low community spread. So with these indicators, instead of arbitrarily just putting dates to a return plan, we're going to use data to do that. On the next 2 pages, page 272 and 273, this is the COVID-19 community scorecard, and it shows our parameters on October 6th of 2020, which was the data that we sent to TA within our proposal. And on page 274, it identifies our evidence-based transition plan. In this transition plan, it has the 4 stages coupled with transition phases 1, 2, 3, and 4. Depending on what COVID-19 is doing within our community, is how we would transition students, classroom teachers, essential staff, athletics, and fine arts into our facilities, into or out of, because we know that COVID-19 is a fluid situation. This also provides every person a direct responsibility for our state of transition. For example, anytime that you look at the news, they tell us it is your responsibility to keep this COVID-19 numbers down. Wash your hands, social distance, don't touch your eyes, nose, or mouth. And they tell us exactly what to do. However, sometimes we don't listen and we have a spike within the community. With our transition plan, it gives evidence-based parameters on how we transition in and out depending on what COVID-19 is doing. If you look on page 275, this was the initial request that we sent to TA on Friday, October 9th. And we did a follow-up on the 14th, on October 14th. And the email below reflects the proactive measure that Dr. Espinosa took to move one of our March floating intersessions to the week of October 19th to the 23rd. So we reflected that within our response email. And on page 276, this was a response from TEA. In response to the LEA's request, a 2-week transition period is granted with the understanding that the LEA will continue to operate at a minimum and its current capacity. The agency will further review the information previously provided by the LEA while continuing to monitor the data available and follow up with the determinations regarding the remainder of the additional transitional weeks requested. Beginning now and over the course of the next week, beginning October 19th, 2020, the LEA should monitor the local health conditions with the intent to implement a robust in-person or a robust phase-in plan should the agency extend this transitional time by additional weeks. On the following pages, it just shows how Dr. Ocaranza supported the submission of our waiver. And at this time, administration recommends consideration of approval for a second TEA transition waiver as presented, and to include any and all additional weeks granted by TEA. And for clarification and transparency, if TEA mandates a robust transition plan and does not honor our evidence-based transition plan with no additional weeks granted, all teachers will have to return to work on site on Friday, November 6th. Face-to-face instruction will begin Monday, November 9th. Any questions?
Ms. Nahara, I have a question. Ms. Macias,
Yes, sir, Mr. Mena.
Ms. Macias.
Yes, sir.
The waiver that we're going to submit is we're going to submit it to December.
That's what we did, sir. We actually submitted a request for 9 weeks. And what TEA responded was, we have 2 weeks. That was a response that they gave us, and they asked us to gather more data and to submit it again, and then they let us know. So right now, the only thing they have approved, we requested, Dr. Espinosa requested 9 weeks.
Right.
The thing that they approved was 2 weeks with a robust transition plan. So everything that we submitted as far as the information that we provided and how we wanted to transition our students back and our faculty staff back safely with a data-driven plan, they said, nope, you got 2 weeks.
Well, just allegedly, we are the second most contaminated city in the nation. So
yes, sir.
Let's see how robust that is in their eyes, right? And then I'm pretty sure you're going to include that and the current spike in numbers that we are going through right now. So hopefully we do get the, hopefully we get what we ask. And that help us. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Ms. Nájera?
Question?
Yes, sir, Mr. Gandara.
These are some tough times, especially, only getting 2 weeks. There's no other way that we can ask for another waiver or go at it about a way to ask for more time.
Mr. Gana, that was the response that they gave us. Therefore, the request for you all to approve the 2 weeks and additional weeks that they might give us. They asked us to gather more data and to submit, and I've been doing that as of Monday.
So
and I will be submitting on a weekly basis. I don't know. They didn't leave us much hope. Dr. Espinosa.
There's a possibility, right? There's a possibility that they might give us more time.
There's all possibilities, sir. Yes, sir.
There's all possible. I know in this time there's a lot of possibilities, and
Hello?
Mr. Gondeta, are you still there?
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. I apologize. I don't know how it turned off. But again, I know it's a possibility. Again, I want to thank all our personnel working hard on this, because this isn't something, that just, we deal with it every day. We're learning every day off of this, and how things change and how TA is, going about it. But, as a board member, and I know my fellow board members, we've been listening to our community, when we really want to have a safe working environment for our students, our teachers, and our support staff. And, hopefully that's what we can ensure. I know we talk about the robust, thing that they want from us. And I know you guys are working hard at it to make it safe. And I really do want to thank everybody involved, especially our board members, for listening to all our employees, our students, and our support staff, and trying to make it a better work environment for them. Again, hopefully, we can. Hopefully we can, and hopefully, we can somehow buy a little bit more time for all our students and employees. If not, and we have to come back in those 2 weeks. Hopefully we're ready, and I think we are, but you never know. And again, I want to thank all of you for all of your hard work.
Thank you, sir.
President Nájera, I got some questions.
Yes, sir, Mr. Garcia.
Ms. Maribel, obviously, I thank you for this presentation. I really admire the transparency, the emails that you provided. It gives me substance. It gives me as a board member, again, just like Mr. Gondeta said, we're all getting a lot of calls, very concerned teachers and support staff, parents. So I do appreciate that. So that way we can squash any rumors right off the bat. And it's in the email. We requested up until December 18th. Now, my question is, scientific experts are predicting that it's going to continue to get worse. What kind of contingency plans, what do we have in place in case these cases continue to exist? Now, continue to increase.
Correct. And Dr. Espinosa used one of our contingency plans again, very proactively. We do have our floating intercessions. So what he did is he moved one of our floating intercessions from March. That way it provided us some time. That way we could get a response from TEA, of course, bring it to you all. So the worst case scenario is that we would have to adjust our calendar if TEA does not provide us any additional time.
And I guess this next question will be for Mr. Blanco. Mr. Blanco, do we have any kind of legal option here? And I guess, I may sound a little bit ignorant, whatever, but considering the safety of our employees, what if we do what I think, in my opinion, is what's right, and say, hey, you know what, we need to continue this. What is at stake here?
So if you get to a point in time where TEA will not grant certain waivers, TEA's response to that has been that it could affect funding for different items that the school district receives funding from TEA for. I can't predict whether TEA will go that route. If the district were to be refused a waiver of time and nonetheless continue to remain closed and not offering the instruction or the attendance that TEA requires, you could face a fight with TEA over funding. Obviously, that would involve some type of an administrative hearing for the state administrative office, like a lawsuit down the road when the funding is declined. I don't know that we want to go that route. I'm hopeful that TEA will recognize that what they said earlier can be applied on a local basis. They're saying statewide that certain things are going to be required, but that doesn't work when you're in a local area where the virus and the impact may be more significant or more severe, such as it is in El Paso right now. So that would be the next step, is we're in a position with TEA, we're at an impasse, we're asking for some type of relief, and they tell us no, then the board and the administration would have to decide on a local level whether or not you want to abide by TEA's directives or not. I will say it's never a good idea to be adverse to TEA directly. And I do think that there is a group of local school districts that are trying to coordinate and trying to follow the same type of advice and engage in the same type of calendar adjustments to make it consistent. I think that makes it harder for TEA to deny those types of requests if school districts are all doing the same thing. And I think for now, Dr. Espinosa and his team have managed a good job of reaching out to the other local districts. I've been on a couple of those calls and trying to coordinate what we're doing. So to the extent that everybody bands together in El Paso, it applies some pressure to TEA, but at the end of the day, they have the final say on what they're going to approve or not approve with respect to waivers.
Thank you, Mr. Blanco. I have no further questions. Just want to comment on just real quick and just amazing work, Maribel. Thank you so much again for that. I appreciate it.
Ms. Mena, I have a couple more questions.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mena, go ahead.
Ms. Macias, when would I teach if TA doesn't approve his waiver? When will our teachers have to go back to in classroom? What date? November what?
Yes, sir. If TA does not provide us any additional time, it would be Friday, November 6th on site and face-to-face with our students on Monday, November 9th.
And my next question, can we resubmit another waiver? Because I know our next board meeting is not till November 17th. Will we have to do a special board meeting for that?
Now, my recommendation today was for you, and let me read it. Administration recommends consideration and approval for a second TEA transition waiver as presented and to include any and all additional weeks granted by TEA. Mm-hmm. That way, on a weekly basis, I will be submitting data based on their response. That's what they tasked me to do. And when I submit the data, I'm assuming they are going to reply with, you have additional weeks or you just have the 2 weeks. So if they give us additional weeks, of course, I will do a board communique to let everybody know. So let you all know much sooner than I. And that way, if you all give me that way, as soon as they approve, they give us approval to accept any additional weeks that they provide.
Thank you, Ms. Maribel.
Ms. Macias, I'm sorry, one more question. I apologize, but what does our robust plan look like?
Well, unfortunately, robust, if you go to page 274, page 274 was our evidence-based transition plan based on the stages of what COVID-19 was doing. Again, stage 1 meaning the worst, stage 4 meaning the best. So if TEA does not honor our transition plan, that means that if they give us 2 weeks, we go directly from what we're doing now for 2 weeks, which is we're holding with our group B and C students. And then on week 3, we would go directly into our phase 4, which are our groups B, C, and D, which is about 26% of our students, which is about 12,400 students. So we would go, again, no additional support from TEA. We would go from holding like we were at the beginning or right before intersession. And then in 2 weeks, which is November 9th, we would be face-to-face with all of our students that want to return, which is about 26% of our students. If they give us, let's say if they baby step it, for lack of better words, and they give us 2 more weeks, after I submit the data this Friday, if they give us 2 more weeks, then these 4 stages would kind of fall into dates instead of stages. So we're back to dates instead of following, data that we know is strong. We would just be week 1, which would be stage 1, week 2, stage 2, week 3 would be the transition phase 3. And then on November 16th is whenever we would be transitioning to face with all of our students. So that's my assumption of what they mean by robust, that they want dates to our plan instead of using data.
And so this graph or this information here also applies to athletics and sports, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Sorry, was that you, Mr. Morales?
This is Mr. Gondar. Motion to approve?
Second.
Is there any other, I'm sorry, I have a motion by Mr. Gondeta and a second by Mr. Garcia. Is there any further discussion?
Yes, President Nájera.
Yes, sir, Dr. Espinosa.
Yes, I just want to reiterate, to our entire community. And you heard from Ms. Macias. We've been working hard on this. We met Sunday afternoon, because I don't know if it was this Sunday or last Sunday. It's around the clock. And when we came up with the decision of moving our intercession because of the spike here in El Paso, and I've been reaching out to other area superintendents. I've been reaching out to Dr. Ocaranza. We had a meeting with Dr. Ocaranza, some of the superintendents, and we said, hey, Dr. Ocaranza, we need your help. Could you ask the mayor to reach out to the governor? And the mayor indeed reached out to the governor, and so tomorrow we have a meeting with TA Commissioner Mike Morath tomorrow. So I think it's tomorrow afternoon. But we're going to continue to make sure our community's safe, our employees, our students. But like Mr. Blanco said, there's something that I've always said, that I'm not going to sacrifice funding. Austin ISD received a message. I don't know if it was a letter or that, hey, if you don't, because apparently they were doing something that I guess a TA did not approve of. And they received a message that your funding will be impacted. And if funding is impacted, everyone needs to understand that employees, as in one example, one of many, employees don't get paid. And again, these are some difficult times. So we got to make sure we're in compliance with TEA as well as like the whole local health authority. But I cannot thank the team enough. We tried all the way to December. We were denied. So 2 weeks. And again, I have confidence in the team that if it does not get extended, that we're going to make sure that our employees and students are safe. Thank you, President Nájera.
Thank you, Dr. Espinosa. Ms. Macias, just for clarification, this item is consider approval of TEA transition waiver request for the 2020-2021 school year. Should that be a request? Because we're approving the 2 weeks that TEA has already given us, but you're going to submit another waiver. So are we approving the other waiver at this time as well?
Yes, ma'am. And any and all additional weeks granted by TEA.
Okay, perfect. So yes, I have a motion by Mr. Gondeta, a second by Mr. Garcia. And I'll call for the vote. Mr. Morales?
Aye.
Mr. Gondeta?
Aye.
Mr. Garcia?
Aye.
Mr. Mena?
Aye.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Aye.
And the motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Macias.
Thank you.
On to item 7J, discussion and possible action to approve apportionment and disbursement of El Paso Electric settlement funds to Socorro ISD. Mr. Blanco.
Thank you, Board President Nájera, Dr. Espinosa, members of the board. Over the course of the last 3 weeks or so, the members of the Rate 41 group have been holding meetings to discuss how the settlement is going to be completed. This relates to the sale of El Paso Electric, and as part of the Rate 41 group's lawsuit over that and an intervention action, it was resolved. We agreed to certain conditions and parameters related to that. One of the requirements was that there would be a fund paid by the purchasing entity that would be shared amongst the group in the Rate 41 rate classification. It's a $2 million fund. That money is prepared to be paid out. The group has had conversations about how that's going to be handled and managed. The most recent was on October the 9th. And the idea right now is that El Paso Independent School District will act as the fiscal agent to receive the funds. It makes it easier, obviously, if one entity receives the money in trust for the others. El Paso Independent School District has been acting as the lead contact for that lawsuit and for the settlement in any event, so it makes sense that they're doing it. They've agreed to do it. The next question was, how would the $2 million that is part of that settlement that will be paid to the members of the Rate 41 group going to be paid out? The common sense approach, and it is the one that prevailed, would be that the percentages that were used to fund the litigation would be the same percentages that would be used to receive the settlement funds. So Socorro will receive its share based on the amount and the percentage that it's been paying in to that classification for the lawsuit. I believe, I don't know if Mr. Ressa has the exact number, but I believe it's 21% for Socorro. The money will then be paid out. What we need tonight is to approve that parameter and the structure that has been agreed to by the members of the group. And so we have the agenda item. I mean, it's rather lengthy, and the motion that we would need would be to approve El Paso Independent School District to be the fiscal agent for the receipt of the settlement proceeds in the matter on behalf of the Rate 41 group, including the Socorro Independent School District, and that we move that the board approve the division of the proceeds to Socorro according to the previously approved Rate 41 usage percentages used as the basis for the allocation of attorney's fees for the Rate 41 group in that matter. That's the actual motion that I just read. We're asking that you approve that so that the districts can move forward, receive the funds through El Paso, and then those funds be paid out accordingly by their percentages.
Mr. Mena, motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Mena and a second by Mr. Morales. Is there any further discussion? Then I'll call for the vote. Mr. Morales?
Aye.
Mr. Gondeta, are you still there? Yeah, I believe Mr. Gondeta had to leave the meeting for a little bit. And Mr. Garcia has also had to leave the meeting, but we do still have a quorum. Mr. Mena?
Aye.
Ms. Rodriguez?
President Nájera, I must abstain from this vote since I work for EPISD. I don't think I can vote on this item.
Ms. Nájera, so we don't have a quorum now.
No, sir, we don't.
Wait a minute. Ms. Nájera, who's present still for the meeting?
I have Mr. Morales, Mr. Mena, and Ms. Rodriguez, and myself.
Okay, you still have a quorum. The abstention of a board member does not remove them from being in attendance. They're just not voting on the item. As long as we have a majority of the board members who are present and voting, approving the item, it is proper.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I was like deer in the headlights. I'm like, I don't know what to do. Okay, and so, yes, and I vote agreement, and so the motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Blanco. Okay, item 8, executive session. The meeting is to be closed for consultation with legal counsel to discuss pending purchase of real estate for school needs in Gateway Estates and Emerald Estates subdivision, to discuss personnel and real estate matters, to consider rescinding resignation for Lotta, to hear results of the 1720 safety and security audit, to consider superintendent's evaluation instrument and timeline, and to consider administrative recommendations for assistant director for special education under Government Code sections 551.071, 551.072, and 551.074. And the time now is 8:04. We will leave our regular meeting and go to executive session.
Hello, Ms. Rodriguez. Can you hear me loud and clear?
Yes, sir. I'm here and I can hear you loud and clear.
Thank you, ma'am. Dr. Espinosa, can you hear me loud and clear?
Yes, sir. I'm here.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Candela, can you hear me loud and clear? Mr. Mena, can you hear me loud and clear?
Loud and clear.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Guerra, can you hear me loud and clear?
Yes, sir, I can. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Morales, can you hear me loud and clear?
Yes. Can you hear
Thank you,
me?
Loud and clear, sir. Thank you.
I got my mic working now. For some reason, we had to fiddle with it. Thank you.
No problem, sir. President Nahara, can you hear me loud and clear, ma'am?
Yes, sir, sure can. Thank you.
Mr. Gandara, can you hear me loud and clear?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. President Nahara, we have everyone in with the exception of Mr. Garcia.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. We are back in regular session. The time is 9:06. We will continue with item 9, new business A, discussion and possible action to approve real estate contract by and between GFA Limited Partnerships. Mr. Blanco.
Thank you, Board President Nahara, Dr. Espinosa, members of the board. We had a good lengthy discussion about these two pending real estate transactions for the purchase of land for school sites. I'd like to go ahead and break them up because I think it's easier if we handle them that way, assuming the board is inclined to approve each of them. And the first is to approve the real estate contract by and between GFA Limited Partnership. They're known as GFA LLC, or their assignee as the seller, and Socorro Independent School District as the buyer for a Gateway Estates property consisting of approximately 33 gross acres within the Gateway Estates development, a proposed subdivision of the city of El Paso County. And we'd ask that the board consider that, and the recommendation is that you approve entering that real estate contract again. It will come back to the board for a final review and approval on resolutions, and we'll look into the additional items regarding bond funding that the board asked about.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion to approve by Mr. Mena and a second by Mr. Gondeta for the first plat of land located in the Gateway Estates. Is there any further discussion? I'll call for the vote. Mr. Morales?
Aye.
Mr. Gondeta?
Aye.
Mr. Mena?
Aye.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Aye.
And Mr. Getta has joined us. Mr. Getta?
Aye.
And the motion carries. And now the second item, Mr. Blanco?
Yes, the second one was the plot that we're describing as the Emerald Estates location. Again, we discussed the particulars regarding that proposed transaction and the real estate contract that the board is being asked to approve tonight. That is for a real estate contract between Northtown Village Joint Venture, or their assignee as the seller, and Socorro Independent School District as the buyer, for approximately 25 to 27 gross acres to be determined in the final transaction, to be platted as Emerald Estates Unit 5, another proposed subdivision in El Paso County. Again, as with the other one, this item will come back to the board one final time for approval through resolutions, and we will also look into the possibility of using bond proceeds for this as a future date as well. So we're asking the board, and it's a recommendation of the administration, to approve entering into this real estate contract.
Motion to approve, Mr. Mena.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Mena and a second by Mr. Morales on the second plot of land in the Emerald Estates. Is there any further discussion? Mr. Morales?
Aye.
Mr. Gondeta?
Aye.
Mr. Guetta?
Aye.
Mr. Mena?
Aye.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Aye.
And the motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Blanco.
Thank you.
And now item 9B, consider approval of rescinding resignation for Lada. I'm not sure, is this Mr. Redlinger or who's handling this?
Yes, this is Mr. Redlinger, President Nahara, Dr. Espinosa, and members of the board. I'm Mr. Thomas Redlinger, HR Director for Employee Relations, and I'm presenting on behalf of Mr. Rudy Capoya to present the consideration approval of rescinding the resignation for Ms. Lara.
Motion to approve, Mr. Mena.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Mena and a second by Ms. Rodriguez. Is there any further discussion? Mr. Morales?
Aye.
Mr. Gondeta?
Aye.
Mr. Guetta?
Aye.
Mr. Mena?
Aye.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Aye.
And the motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Redlinger.
Thank you, ma'am.
And item 9C, consider approval of superintendent's evaluation instrument and timeline.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Mena and a second by Ms. Rodriguez. Is there any further discussion? And I'll call for the vote. Mr. Morales?
Aye.
Mr. Gondeta? Mr. Gondeta? Do we know if he's having trouble?
I think he's saying aye, but I can barely hear him.
Okay. Mr. Guetta?
Aye.
Mr. Mena?
Aye.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Aye.
And the motion carries. And item 9D, consider approval of administrative recommendation for Assistant Director for Special Education, Dr. Espinosa.
Yes, President Nahara, members of the board, administration recommends Mr. Jorge Sainz to assume all the roles and the responsibilities as the Assistant Special Ed Director.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Rodriguez and a second by Mr. Mena. Is there any further discussion? Okay, then I'll call for the vote. Mr. Morales?
Aye.
Mr. Gondeta?
President Nahara, this is David. He is connected,
sir.
but it seems he is not connected to the audio bridge at the moment.
Okay, we'll continue then. Thank you, David. Mr. Guetta?
Aye.
Mr. Mena?
Aye.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Aye.
And the motion is approved. And that,
Aye.
well, it's about time. Thank
I'm
you.
sorry, I didn't want to work, but
Okay, that does conclude our business for the night. If there's nothing further, we are adjourned. The time is 9:13. Guys, thank you all so very much, and please be safe and take care of yourselves.
Good night, everybody.
Stay safe,
Good night,
everyone.
everybody.
Good
Be
night.
safe.
Good night.